Mehrshad Setayesh. I'm the CTO of a company called NextHealth Technology, and our focus in NHT is to apply advanced analytics to healthcare data that during the time of this interview I'll get into.
Great, Mehrshad. Thanks so much for making time to join us on the Heavy Podcast. Before we spend time talk about your current role, current organization, give us a thumbnail version of your career to date.
Sure. My strength has been building teams expert in intersecting big data and advanced analytics. We started a company called Collective Intellect in 2006, and by building a platform that was able to processing hundreds of millions of messages a day, few trillion categorization operations per day, and overall generating 4 million metrics a minute. The underlying IP included latent semantic analysis, natural language processing, a sentiment analysis that we were doing in 32 languages, and we sold Collective Intellect to Oracle in 2012. After becoming an employee of Oracle, I was put in charge of expanding the social platform to become part of a social portal for the entire Oracle cloud, such as Oracle Data Cloud, Oracle Marketing Cloud, Oracle Service Cloud. And the team itself was ballpark maybe about 100 engineers and distributed across US, China, and India. And this portal was not only responsible for social listening, but also for social customer service and social marketing. Some example use cases, FYI, is running running campaigns in Facebook and Twitter. And for customer service, we could talk about allowing call centers to receive inbound calls, not only from phones or emails, but also from social channels. And for reps to interface with your channels such as Twitter to address, brand user issues and problems. I think I worked in Oracle for 7 years, from 2012 to 2019, and then transition to bringing advanced analytics and big data to healthcare, which, as we know, is lagging in IT compared to other verticals such as finance, M&E, and CPG. And here in NHT, we are consuming a very large number of healthcare-related records. And we are feeding that into our algorithms for the purpose of not only identifying which programs that our clients that you're executing are successful and reaching out their member targets, but also how these campaigns they are rendering better results. I would say, in short, we allow our clients in NHT to monitor and adjust their campaigns with the objectives of not only improving the health of their members, but also reducing the healthcare costs.
Oh, that's very exciting and very diverse background. I appreciate the insight and telling us a little bit more about it. So fast forward, NextHealth, tell us a little bit more about this. What is the value proposition? How did you come about that? And where do you see yourself going with this?
Sure, great question. As I said before, I occupied the CTO role in NHT, reporting directly to CEO. I manage a team of about a few dozen engineers that is distributed globally. And our mandate here is to create a unique SaaS platform, allowing our clients to get very rapid feedback on which of the campaigns are successful, as I mentioned before, and which one would benefit from new populations to reach out, and through which channels these nudges are to occur, such as email, phone, social, email. If you want to abstract this out, look at it as, we measure the success of the campaigns, then based on that measurement, we target a population that the campaign needs to reach out to. And after they reach out to their members, for example, one of those campaigns could be diabetes reduction. Then at that moment, every month that they give us the claims data and we see how the campaigns they are behaving, we can go ahead and we can optimize that for these group of people, reach out to them using mail, for these group of people using email and what have you. And specifically, the success of these campaigns are measured by analyzing various aspects of received health records that we receive on a regular basis, and trying to understand how much the underlying programs are influencing specifically the behavior of target populations. In addition to diabetes improvement, ER reduction, telehealth registration increase are some of those examples. And before we started to create such an advanced platform, No single campaign measurement on this platform was completing end-to-end without any engineering involvement or any babysitting. And then as of just a week ago, we are close to 80% of all transactions, they finish in an automated way, which means at the moment that the customer goes to the UI and they create a campaign to measure the success of their programs, that automatically gets kickstarted and runs end to end by various algorithms that they do clustering, they do matching, and they do lift computation and what have you. And then as of today, 80% of those campaigns, they finish on their own. And then specifically, a customer before they came to us, when they were running these campaigns, the measurement of these campaigns, maybe they could do them, once every quarter. But right now, those campaigns, they finish in less than a few hours. So we not only, we can run many campaigns, but also we can run these campaigns very fast for them. So this is where I'm coming from as far as intersection of a SaaS platform to applying advanced analytics to healthcare. And then maybe I can give you a bit of information about my teams itself. I have a CISO who reports to me, Chief Information Security Officer, because security is paramount since we're talking and we're dealing with healthcare data. I have a VP of engineering and I have a director. And then all the other teams that report to these guys, specifically DevOps, Cloud Ops, IT Ops, Security Ops, APIs, Operations, UI, Architecture, Data Processing Pipeline, and what have you. And I would say something that is unique about NextHealth that I truly believe that this is going to be a unicorn company, which, as you know, is any startup that is valued for $1 billion. I think we've been able in bringing the needed expertise together, and in order to build this platform and to set up services. Some of these expertise, that comes to my mind is big data and advanced analytics, leveraging distributed Spark and Python, deep knowledge of healthcare system, specifically familiarity with the data formats, and then also healthcare data itself is paramount to understanding, the end-to-end solution. And then last but not least is an API-based approach to make sure that this platform is extensible and making sure that we can integrate with external parties. And the last thing that I would say is that I'm very proud of this team because in the midst of COVID, and we were all local, and after COVID, everyone went remote. The team's productivity not only did not increase, but also not only did not decrease, but also increased. And it was a very impressive execution, and creating this platform and getting from 0% to 80% of completion rate for the campaigns, and also building a remote culture that will continue with that remote culture going forward.
Right. No, that's very interesting, and definitely a unique space, and the value proposition can definitely, relate how, especially having spent a few years in healthcare myself, the power of analytics and being able to make data-driven decisions. I think it's at the forefront of the companies that are successful in this space. So that's, with the increase, the emergence of technologies such as the telehealth, e-health, I think a lot of those things, I think they matter a lot, especially when it comes to understanding your data, understanding how your information is being consumed. So definitely looking forward to discussing that with you. In terms of, so you're leading the technology, all of the aspects of that for your organization, and you've mentioned you have a pretty big size technology team under you, developing, fostering, and cultivating the culture of innovation. I'm pretty sure that's at the forefront of your strategy as an executive, as a leader, and we cover that topic quite often on the podcast, and I spend a lot of time talking to other executives, and a lot of the questions when we casually talk about this. Hey, John, you talked to a lot of executives. What are they doing in this space? What are some of the experiments they're running? What are some of the things that are working for them? So curious to get your take on that. If you could share some of the practical recommendations when it comes to building and fostering culture of innovation that, in your teams and your organization, that would be great.
Sure. So let me break it down maybe in two answers, if you don't mind. One of them is on innovation and how do we promote innovation, and the second thing is specifically on the culture and the culture of innovation and how we infuse, the required innovation into the culture, into the day-to-day execution. On the innovation side, I would say the space itself is going through a change. And then is, as you mentioned, the digitalization of healthcare, and we are seeing our clients embrace telehealth, which is allowing patients in remote areas to be reached out to, since these days, majority of the US population have access to internet. It's very, very exciting to see that. For example, a member's daily schedule these days, as you know, is very busy, and offering such interactions right from the comfort of their home, I think it just improves the overall health of a population, simply because by allowing more interaction with your health providers and catching issues much quicker, right? So we live here in Colorado, and then we get a lot of snow, and then, for example, you could be missing an appointment if you're supposed to be driving out with tons of snow on the ground or what have you. But if you're doing telehealth and you're doing a visit with your provider, you can just do it from the comfort of your home, and you can do it more regularly, right? Because you don't have the traffic, you don't have the commute, you don't have all the challenges. And I think if you look at this innovation, what it's going to do to healthcare in general, I think it's going to make the healthcare become cheaper. And because, as you know, the cost is just crazy. Because people, since they have more interaction with their providers, then I think at that moment, some of the problems and issues, they surface sooner. And, in end, it results into a better health for their members. And then I would say, specifically beyond healthcare, what healthcare embracing telehealth, we are seeing healthcare companies embracing the infusion of advanced analytics on top of their big data. And then, as I mentioned, allows them to do faster measurement and optimizations and turnaround times. Just an example, some customers before, for them to do such an analysis, they had to go to the data scientist team, they had to put a request, the data scientist team would go ahead and they would give them a backlog, and then they would come back when the results were ready. Now we have a SaaS platform, and they just log into the SaaS platform, they run their analysis, they get the results in a matter of hours, and they are done. So if you look at it, this innovation that I'm talking about is exactly what Amazon did to online shopping and what Salesforce did to CRM. What we are trying to do here is trying to bring this SaaS-based advanced analytics in healthcare, to the market, right? Then at that moment, you can just log in and you can just run your analysis. Now, I do understand that, you always have to go in some cases to see your provider, you have some lab tests to do, there's a physical therapy, there's a contact, right, that needs to happen with your provider, with your doctor, which is, it all makes sense. And then I don't think telehealth is going to replace that, but I think a decent number of visits, the telehealth is going to benefit from that. And specifically, just the second question, Jan, is how do you infuse the innovation that you need in your team on a daily basis? Because at the end of the day, you have to have a very innovative culture in order to be able to create some advanced and innovative products out there. What we are trying to do here pretty much is follow some simple principles such as trust, transparency, and continuous improvement. On the trust side, you need to trust in your processes and people to know what is working or what is not working, and where and why we need to improve and innovate, to move on and to advance. And then on that regard, you can't have trust without transparency. Whether it's transparency in your algorithms requiring you to implement some advanced monitoring and alerting system to surface issues at an early stage, or transparency in your culture, promoting folks to voicing their concerns, new ideas, challenging or what have you. You need to create that culture of trust and transparency. And one thing that I would say that has worked very good for me in my previous teams and also in this team is focus on the pipeline of software engineering, not on the product. Because if you have a pipeline, that pipeline can generate core IPs and can produce features through a set of rigor and processes, and that is based on this transparency and trust, then the product itself is only a matter of what are you feeding this pipeline. And you get garbage in, garbage out, but if you feed it, great features and you have a great product team that we have here in NextHealth, then at that moment you get an amazing SaaS platform that comes on the other side. Some of these core principles that we leverage in here is no different, is agile, lean, safe. You're getting into safe and everyone is excited to going in and pursuing that. And the last thing that I would say in here for this innovation is we are also, this software engineering pipeline, we focus a lot on CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous regression testing, functional and performance testing, and hiring new talent. So if I wanted to summarize this long answer, I would say the space is going through a revolution of digitalization, specifically with telehealth, and then the way that we are bringing some of these advanced features to the market, and is coming up with a software a pipeline that allows us to produce features quickly, and at the same time create a team that is honoring trust and transparency.
Right. No, I love these frameworks. At the end of the day, innovation is always perceived as something grandiose and groundbreaking, disruptive technologies, but oftentimes the most efficient ones and the most impactful are the very small experiments that, you can look at the internal process and see how you can actually make certain improvements. That's a form of innovation. So I think a lot of the examples that you're providing is also kind of walking the walk, where it starts at the top as well, to be able to say, here's what we're all about, but also you as an executive kind of leading that charge. I think that makes perfect sense to build that type of culture within the organization. So thanks for that. On the other side of the spectrum, as you've built this organization with, top performers, great technologists, very unique skill sets, and especially now, it's an extremely challenging market to find very unique talent, especially in tech. I'm sure you deal with that on a daily basis, and that's probably at top of your mind as an executive to surround yourself with, top performers, whether you're actively recruiting or not. Talk to us a little bit about the strategies that really help you succeed in the space of talent acquisition. What strategies really help you, not only attract, but retain the top talent?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a multi-layered approach. I think engineers, they love to work with smart and advanced engineers who are smarter than themselves so they can learn from them. Including myself. I like to surround myself with people who are much smarter than myself, who do challenge me. And if I have a tunnel vision, that most of us, because of where we come from, our backgrounds, we have a certain perspectives in life, and we have sometimes tunnel visions. And these individuals, they just go ahead and they ask you to have a broader perspective by discussing and reviewing their opinions. So I think it's very important that you build a strong core. If you build a strong core of smart engineers, then the word gets around that these guys are doing something unique, and guess what? Then people, they want to be part of this unique thing that you want to do. And what I've seen is that if you give them a sense of purpose, which is something that we are doing here in NHT, then people, they feel good about themselves, because it's not only about the technology, it's also about the broader good. Specifically, it's a as I mentioned, technology in healthcare, before it was like oil and water. And I think we're doing a good job of, trying to come up with ways of, like I said, inducing this technology into healthcare. And I think that the result of that is that we are seeing that, people are getting healthier. So this is a space where we see a true benefit by the outcome of this technology that we are working on. So if you have a sense of purpose that we have, if you have a sense of strong engineers at the core that everyone else gravitate towards them and they want to learn from them, then the rest of it is you go through your interviews and you make sure that you can, all this extra demand that they want to come and work with for you, that you make sure that you can filter raw and top talent. And then on my side, specifically when I interview, I am very interested about having open conversation about the backgrounds, their interest in life, their hobbies, and desired team culture. Specifically, I'm interested in a well-rounded smart people who want to solve complex challenges, which are much bigger than themselves and require advanced teams. And I'm looking for people who are not only searching for 9 to 5 jobs, but they're passionate about their work. They want to build amazing things and be proud of it. And they want to leave the world in a better place and not only interested in a, base comp package and what have you. So if I want to boil down to some basics, I would say I have a sense of purpose for the team. Number two is build a strong core that everyone else can gravitate towards, and have a very human-based interview process that you can judge personalities in addition to expertise, because at the end of the day, building strong teams is not only smart people, but it's also a right team culture that they enjoy spending time with their colleagues, and those colleagues, they become friends, because people, they are loyal to teams. And that loyalty to big enterprises, all that stuff, and enterprise loyalty, to low-level employees is not as it was before. But as of these days, loyalty is to the team. So if you build a strong team culture, that people are your friends, then I think at that moment, people, they stay around, and they do their best to make the company successful.
Right, absolutely. To take this a little bit further, the art and the science of interviewing is something that I'm fascinated about, and I've yet to see anybody master that, because it's such a challenging space. Because it's a learning experience through every interview. No matter how many interviews that you conduct, there's always something that comes up that at least for me, I take a lot of notes, especially through my decision-making abilities through that short interaction with the candidate. Talk to us a little bit about your approach to interviews. What does an interview with Mehrshad looks like? What do you look for in responses? And basically, what have you learned through all of the interviews that you had conducted?
So I think everyone else, we take him through several phases. There is a pair programming. I have seen that pair programming is a good way that, we take him through an issue that we might have in production, and we say, how would you solve this, right? Try to see how reactive, and then how they can apply, their intelligence on the fly. So definitely that's a good way of measuring the candidate. Just giving them a design problem, and saying go to the board and then design such a need that we have, and try to see the big picture perspective. How do they react? And I think that's on the technical side, and asking them relevant questions. Definitely, I think that has given us some good feedback. Specifically, what I'm looking for is passion, energy, intelligence, and engagement, and also an ability to absorb and discuss complex thoughts. Something that I've seen, that allows me to separate people who are very advanced, is ask him what has been the most complicated feature that you have implemented in the past, year, right? Because if the guys that we are hiring and we are looking for, we want them to come from a background that they have applied their expertise to. So for example, if the problem has been, I worked on this UI feature that I create some charts to display some data, that's not as attractive as saying I had to work on this advanced rule builder that you could do multiple level of nesting of Boolean expressions, and you had to do validations, and this is the way that you had to persist in a database, and whether it was a JSON persistence or what have you. So if they can go, I'm looking for people who can go all the way to the high level, that they can design complex software solutions, because in software there is no blueprint, so pretty much it comes out of your mind. And also that they can take that complex software solution and they can break it down into components, and they can implement it. And just having a conversation with them, having a friendly conversation, saying go to the board and just draw for me the data flow of the system that you design and what have you, and then break it down in details and tell me what challenges that you had. Just at that level of conversation, going from one engineer to another engineer, I have seen that, it has given me, I would say, it maybe 80% of the times, just using this approach has been able for me specifically to separate, novices from advanced engineers. And then one more last thing I would say is team culture. So I ask him, I say, what type of team do you like to be in? Because I think it's good from the get-go to tell them what type of team we have and make sure that they feel comfortable with that team. The last thing that you want is that, the person, for example, is that we are a very extrovert team, and then I promote people to surface their voices. I have a couple saying, one saying that I do it in the interviews too, is that there is no trust without transparency. And the second thing is dissent is an obligation. If you don't like something, you're obligated to say no. Otherwise, we assume that you're okay, and then we're going to hold you accountable. So as part of that, I promote my people to voice their concern, to challenge me continuously. I'll do the same thing, and then we should challenge each other. And then if you're hiring someone who's an introvert who doesn't want to interact with people and what have you, from the get-go, as I voice, this chemistry to them, then they know what they are getting themselves into. And then if this is not their cup of tea, then at that moment, they politely bow out. So I would say, if I wanted to summarize this, is number one, have the other team members do advanced technical interviews. That includes whether some people, they give them assignments, some people they do pair programming, take them to the board and ask them to answer some questions. And specifically at my level is culture match, and also is the level of way of advanced thinking by asking them to talk to me about some of the complicated features, and make sure that they like the team that they are going to drop in.
Right, absolutely. I think it's I'm always fascinated that those that succeed in that space, common thread is also being able to create that two-way street, almost a conversation between the hiring manager and the candidate, because it's also an opportunity for the candidate to make that assessment, whether that leadership style is something that they look for or they can succeed under, and the type of environment. So I think everything that you're talking about definitely makes sense and applies perfectly. The last portion of each episode, I love talking about your content diet. What do you consume on a daily basis to educate yourself? Stay ahead of the curve, stay ahead of the trends. Share with us those sources.
I have a list of sources. I have a couple books that I'm reading now. I read short articles, long articles, depending on how much time I have, specifically on technology, healthcare, how to improve, its day-to-day execution with your team, how to build stronger teams. And something that I continuously read, and I don't think I'll ever come to an end of it, is how to improve yourself. Because before you ask your colleagues and your team to improve, I think you have to serve as a role model. So continuously, I'm reading a lot of books on, on how to improve your thinking, be more efficient in execution, and what have you. And then a great book that I'm reading right now, I have recommended that to a lot of my my folks, is The Art of Impossible, and it talks about how to achieve the impossible. It's a great book and has helped me a lot about how to specifically fine-tune your thinking, how to fine-tune your energy, how to fine-tune a high number of hours that in our situations of leadership, that you have to focus not on many things, but at the same time for a long number of hours. And then how do you stay focused, right, without burning down on what have you? And then how do you create a work and life balance? That book I recommend it to everyone. It's called The Art of Impossible. And as part of that, I think I gravitated towards that book because I have a signature in my email from Arthur C. Clarke, which reads, "The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible." And I think, it's only by pushing yourself and pushing your team. And at the end of the day, I think, by doing these self-improvements and by working with your team, I'm able to create strong leaders and not followers. I'm not interested in creating followers. I'm interested in creating strong leaders. And then as part of that, you need to understand how to train them. You need to understand how to cultivate them. And it's not only at work. Sometimes, it's for example, this Art of Impossible is, you got to work with them at a human level. People, we all go through challenges because of COVID and what have you. People, they went through difficult situations in their lives. and then you just can't expect them to perform. So you need to go at one level deeper. You need to work with them at the human level. You need to give them some time off. You need to go ahead and see them in person. You know, in COVID, I was traveling and then driving and going and walking, taking a walk with them, you know, with mask outside. And, you know, when everyone was remote, just to make sure that you're doing well, right? And some of them, they had some issues, and, you know, specifically, we just talked hours and hours, you know, and then I shared some of my problems with them. And the last thing that I would say, the second book that I'm looking forward to be reading, it is after this Art of Impossible. It's called Super Founders, and it reveals, you know, the founders who work in these unicorn companies, and what is the common traits that they have, and then how do they see the world, and how do they see the people around them, and what sort of culture and what sort of environment have they created that allows them to create, you know, a unicorn company. So I'm really looking forward to reading that book.
All of these recommendations, and for our listeners, we'll make those titles available in show notes. Mehrshad, can't thank you enough for your time today. Very short and insightful conversation. I personally learned quite a bit. Definitely going to stay in touch with you, and thank you for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to answering some of your great questions. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.